When I was in eighth grade, I had a spontaneously collapsed lung. Right after that, I had a hernia surgery. I think I knew from a young age that I was incredibly lucky. Upper class home in New York City, went to a private school and wanted for nothing. The less we communicate with all of our five senses, the less we genuinely can be compassionate for the person. I don't know what to tell you, Aaron. Farmers are the best. They're the best people. They're kind, they're community driven, hard work.
Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. #Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, the one and only Sam Goldberg. Sam, this is on the bucket list, so thank you for being here.
Hey, buddy. It's great to connect with you. I miss you, and I'm very happy to be in conversation with you today.
Yeah, this is, I said before we went live, this episode will air in probably like 5 or 6 weeks, but by that time, between now and then, the 20th anniversary of probably before my wedding and having children, the highlight of my life, winning a Shiv League basketball championship together. I played a whole 1 minute and 42 seconds in that championship and got to be mentored by you. So I guess we're coming full circle today.
We always needed you. I always knew you were there, and I always felt like we had a great rapport. We did a lot of high fives, a lot of tush slapping, a lot of just old school Steve Nash style, supporting of each other. So here we are 20 years later doing it in a business sense.
That's it. It's great. So I know your background. I always begin by asking our guests to talk about kind of where their hustle, where their drive comes from. And then we'll talk about the evolution of your hustle. But I know you as, obviously we're going to stick to the basketball, but more than just a great basketball player, was a tremendous dedication to the craft. But at the same time, you took a unique path, which was you were also a child actor of real fame. I mean, major lines in a major motion picture. But aside from the keeping the faith, just keeping the faith, obviously, I don't think I understood, or those around you at that time understood, the tremendous amount of effort, physically and emotionally, it probably takes to juggle all of that at 12, 13, 14, 11 years old. So where did that come from? How did you handle it? And how has that led to your helping you be successful today?
That's a great question. I really appreciate it because I don't often think about the specificity of that journey and like when it happened. It's funny when you ask it, I actually think about not the ascent, but the descent. When I was in eighth grade, I had a spontaneously collapsed lung. And then right after that, I had a hernia surgery. And then right after that, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And funny enough, I actually don't think that my body was handling the success, pressure, and balancing very well. Because as you mentioned, when I was 12 years old, seventh grade, eighth grade, I was like featured in a movie called Keeping the Faith. It was a really huge deal. I'd been auditioning every day for 4 or 5 years, which by the way, did not require that much hustle. I actually got to leave school early to audition for films, TV shows, and commercials. If anything, it was very balanced, and my parents thankfully were not stage parents. They realized that it was a hobby that I was lucky enough to be succeeding at and putting some money in the bank and having fun. But actually, after that movie, I have a sense that I was carrying a lot of weight and anxiety that was undiagnosed, and it led to like straight up like bodily issues. I don't think the lung necessarily was that, and the hernia, but ulcerative colitis is a very sort of nervous system anxiety ridden disorder. That said, I think I knew from a young age intuitively that I was incredibly lucky. I grew up in an upper class home in New York City, went to a private school and wanted for nothing. And I had a grandparent on my grandpa, my Zadie on my dad's side, and my grandma who just passed away a few weeks ago on my mom's side, were very dedicated to making the world a better place, to giving charity, and to volunteerism. And then you and I both had the same teacher, just 1 year apart, Miss Ginsburg in fifth grade. Then we had
Sure.
somebody like Dee Dee Bennell in high school. We were surrounded by different people in our lives who made it feel like, yes, you should do the right thing and it'll make you feel good, but even more so that it's a duty. And so I just think that I don't see hard work or trying to make the world a better place as really an option for someone like me. I think it's a duty. Um, and so that was intuitive. I think I've only been able to put words to that over the last 10, 15 years of my life. I think I just had a motor to do it. Also, again, like I just do also, I am somebody who just has a motor. Like I just have like, you don't have to put that much fuel in my tank for it to like be a fast moving car, whether that be athletically or just energetically. And it's just a blessing. I was born that way. I just, you know, just to kind of try and end that chapter, if hard work, dedication, and good deeds started when I was really young and culminated in high school, I took a few years off in college and did not really try hard enough or take myself seriously enough. And I remember when I was in my like 23, 24-year-old phase, I looked in the mirror and I was like, either you're gonna live a life of meaning and hard work or you're gonna coast. And it was like a straight up like movie moment. I made eye contact in the mirror and I was like, dude, like put up or shut up. And so since then, hard work is something I can take credit for because I put in the hours.
But what I would say is, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that you and I agree with you, grew up incredibly privileged. And a lot of times people don't see that, but I think that one of the other things that we could see, and obviously, at least I can speak for myself. I think there's only one person who we ever interacted with who thought that they were going to be a real college or maybe professional athlete. You know, shout out to your cousin Zach Rosenberg. But other than him, who should be on the pod, by the way, the the ability at a young age to put your mind to something and see success. Like, we worked hard at something. You worked hard at auditioning. You got a job. You got a part in a featured film. You worked hard as an athlete, and then you were able to become a good athlete, whatever level that means. Winning, losing, but seeing that success, right? I mean,
Yeah.
foul shot percentage or however you want to look at it. And then I love that you said you had that moment where it was like, I have two choices now. I could coast or I could put the effort in somewhere else. But I also have to believe that when you were making that decision, subconsciously was like, I know that if I put my mind to it, I'll do something great, because I have in the past.
I do feel
There's
that way.
no,
I do feel that way. I do remember growing up feeling like I have a lot of potential and I really should see it through to fruition. I don't know what I really did love basketball just very much. And I remember I used to go to the gym and if I couldn't hit like 20 straight foul shots, I couldn't leave. Or if I couldn't hit like 50 straight lefty layups, I couldn't leave. Um, when I talk to anybody who's young, we have a caretaker, babysitter who watches my daughter, and she's like going to college and next year, and she's like, I don't know. I could see that there's a lot of partying at the school, and I was like, you do whatever you want to do. You could party, you could do your thing, but I'm telling you, the habit you need to start now. Wake up early and make your bed. Like, get the basics down. Like, waking up early and making your bed to me is the equivalent to hitting an open layup and hitting a foul shot in basketball. And there's not. I often think that we get into adulthood and we get nervous about the big changes that have to happen in us. It could be a wellness philosophy. It could be I got to get into yoga. It's always the little things. The little things build up. And my wife always says, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you approach life with a couple of small habits and let them build, you really things get a lot easier when you get the basics down.
and it's also just easier to achieve the success because that hustle is ingrained in you, and you're able to see every day I'm going to put in the work. Every day I see a little bit, another step becomes a little bit easier, and then you're able to. That the thing that felt like a chore making your bed is much more difficult. It's like, I was not an early morning person, even though that senior year of yours in high school, we were forced to get up early, like once a week for basketball practice, which seemed like insane at the time. But once you start doing it, your body says this is where I should be. And so it's the same thing, I think, with any muscle memory. And I think that some of that is also from a philosophical or business or however you want to build your life or your legacy. It's also about putting in the reps there. So I think I think that's an incredible message. I want to ask you about something that I saw on your website, and everyone should look at your bio. Everyone should. We're going to talk a little about some of the films, but your work is incredible. It's the amount of effort and time. By the way, talking about not coasting, I mean choosing a field to go into that is like the most impossible thing to succeeding. Like opening a restaurant would have been easier than than going into the film business.
Sure.
But you have a quote on your website that really hit home for me, and it says as follows: "I believe that art has the unique ability to produce empathy." Why do you think we need more empathy in the world?
It's funny because oftentimes I find empathy is overused. Um, I remember growing up, they were like really specific to tell you the difference between sympathy and empathy. Um, and they were really specific to tell you the difference between stress and anxiety. There are a lot of words now that have become hollow, and sadly, I think empathy is one of them. That said, I we're clearly living a more digital existence. I'm not looking to be like another get off my lawn person on your podcast here, but the less we communicate with all of our five senses, the less we genuinely can be compassionate for the person or being. It could be an animal, it could be your house in front of us. You have to, on some level. I mean, that sounded very esoteric and weird. Your house is not a being, but
Yeah.
the point is, like, you very easily now in life can go on cruise control. A phone can do it for you. You can have the podcast in your ear. You don't have to think. You don't have to ruminate. You don't have to meditate. You have to be kept busy. And in a life where you're constantly kept busy, there's less and less space in your heart for other people around you. What art, I think, does is it sort of fractures that coasting. You might be, on the street in New York City and caught up in your day and looking down at your phone and really upset and mad and angry, and then come upon somebody busking who happens to play really good guitar, and it could change your entire day. It could change your entire perspective. These things that happen to me in my own life. One or two simple interactions have changed an entire trajectory of my life. And art is one of those things that does sort of arrest you in the moment and force you to stop and connect with all five of your senses. Um, I am in the medium of film and television mostly. I am increasingly cynical about those mediums because everybody is a filmmaker now, just by virtue of the incredible camera technologies on our phone. I think we're at like peak video to some extent. Like everybody's creating, everybody's consuming. I often say what's challenging now is when I went to see, Gladiator in the movie theater. We walked around the block and we talked about it for like hours. Or we went out to dinner and talked about it. Then we saw it the next week in the movie theater. Now you walk out of the movie theater having just watched an incredible story and you disrupt it by looking at content on your phone immediately. And before the digestive material is in your system of the thing you just watched that can penetrate your being and make you more empathetic and compassionate, or at least just make you think differently, you're disrupting the thought. And so it's incumbent upon us as a species to really try and slow down and let the moments land. Um, it's hard. It's hard. It's addictive, but I do think art has a role to play in that. I'm increasingly more bullish on live events because I think when you're in the room with something, it's very hard to ignore it or disrupt it or rudely pull out your phone. It's easier and easier when you're on your couch. But we need more empathy. We need some high quality art, and we need to put the phones down and connect with each other.
It's amazing that you say that because you are a person who is in the medium of film, and film is the original screen. So it's interesting and I agree with you, by the way. And I think that the type of media that people choose to consume can either inspire their human interactions. Let me take a step back. You and I both agree the phones are not going anywhere. The thought of saying that our kids will never have a smartphone, I think it's something that we can maybe dream about, and maybe that's the beauty of sometimes turning things off. But the likelihood is that they'll have more technology at their fingertips than we did at their ages. I mean, my kids laugh when I tell them that, like in high school, we don't like email our assignments in.
Yeah.
There was no, but the type of media, just to get back to the point, the type of media that we choose to consume can be art or cannot be art. And I think that people honestly realize when they think about it They know what's art and what's not art. And they know what inspires them to do more or to be better when they finish it, or or just what they want to scroll for purely entertainment purposes, which is also fine. But I think everybody has to have that balance. You went into a particular type of film, and I mean, you're a guy from the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and you made a film about a silo in what, with as much respect as I could possibly say to the film because it's amazing and to the message. You and I, it's the middle of nowhere, man. Like, you know, like
I know.
it's just, but yet there's something so like, as much as I believe that people in those small towns with experiencing those things probably wish they could hang out in the big city like the Beverly Hillbillies. There's something so incredible about thinking about living the lives that those people live for someone like you and me.
I
So
mean,
what was it like to like get in it?
first of all, I'm living in rural Pennsylvania now on an 8 acre, former farm. So
Love that.
obviously got its
I'm
hooks.
not.
Yeah. It's got its hooks in me enough for me to have moved my family here as a lifestyle choice. I mean, in 2014, I was pitched this movie idea. It was called Silo. It was about a 17-year-old kid who gets trapped in an industrial-sized grain bin. An accident that, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't even know what a grain bin was at the time, happens like 100 plus times a year in America, more than half of which end in fatalities. More than half of those are usually teenagers. So I was like, damn, this is really weird that I know nothing about American agriculture, given I depend entirely on farmers for my survival. So, for one, I should probably go learn more for my own self. Two, we obviously have an increasing divide in our country along urban and rural lines that are conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, whatever you call it. And I believe one of the reasons that's the case, one of many reasons, is that there's no artistic, artful, high quality cinema about rural America. It's always about a drug addiction or a backwoods serial killer or an anti farmer environmental piece. And every now and again, there's a faith based movie that's decent. And every now and again, there's a farm movie, but they are few and far between, and they're usually not that good. And so I felt from a business perspective, but also from a socially conscious perspective, maybe telling a story like this can build bridges. And three, the story itself was very compelling. A kid gets trapped in a grain bin. It's 50,000 pounds of corn bearing down on them. It makes a coal mining rescue operation look simple. And so we worked on that script. I moved to Kentucky and Iowa for the summer of 2018 and filmed that project. And in the process, fell in love with farmers in America and fell in love with the values and the local care and community that exists there, that oftentimes I feel like can be forgotten in urban centers or in suburbia. And I was very compelled to continue telling those stories, so much so that I moved to Pennsylvania during the pandemic. And this summer, I'm producing a 6-part miniseries about a dairy farm. So this is now the career path. It makes business sense, but it also really is something that I think is needed. And I don't know what to tell you, Aaron. Farmers are the best. They're the best people. They're kind. They're community driven. Hard work. I don't hold a candle to the level of work that the farmers that I know do. It's not even close to the hours that they put in compared to almost everybody else. They make less than 2% of the population, yet we all rely upon them. And it's a tough time to be an American farmer. And I'm kind of feel very fortunate that I've stumbled on this path, and that I could be this unlikely kid from a big city with a certain type of education and mindset that is equipped to tell this story. Um, Before this, I had just visited a local church where we're filming a bunch of scenes in the next project, spending time with them, talking about the farmers who are in their congregation, talking about how important their church is to their community. It's very important to learn these things and learn from these things and not forget that even though the world's moving at a fast technological pace, like we just discussed, we've got to actually engage with the people in our local community and not always think global. And that's really what these projects are about, honestly.
Well, do you think that what we're missing, more than just depending upon, obviously we depend upon the agriculture and the farmers for actual sustenance, but I think there's also something to the fact that you and I grew up with a value of a community, of friends, of family structure, of things like that. And yet America is increasingly void of that. And yet it appears to me that what you're saying is what's drawn you in by this community is, or about this community, is that it's kind of like old school in that like there is that sense of community. I imagine, and the film, touches on this, but it's also just like, I imagine in the communities when one of these tragedies happens, as you're saying, 2% of the population, but like everybody knows Billy and the family has been there for generations, and they've helped and been such a part of that congregation, part of that community, that maybe that's what we're missing. Maybe more than just supporting the farmers because we need the agriculture. It's if we all felt like farmers and had that community feeling and did for others, right? Because what they're producing
Yeah.
is really mostly for people who have no regard for them.
And they
Like
never
that level of selflessness.
I'm with you. I mean, I definitely listen. If there's one thing that I could try and do to help heal a bit of what's happening in our society, it's get people to engage in their local community. It's definitely my mission statement around making these projects. It's definitely something we should emulate in terms of some of these local rural communities. There's not all great here either. I mean, it's a mixed bag, but I do often think, man, if I were stuck on the side of the road on a highway, I'd love nothing more than a farmer to pass me because they're the one who's going to stop and help. Um, whereas some of my awesome, more, city friends, they ain't stopping. They're rushing. And so that pace of life, which is often denigrated or looked down upon, is very important, and there's a reason we need it. And yeah, engaging in local community, I think it's a real salve for a lot of our societal ills, anxieties, dissent, divisiveness. But it's hard to think that way when you're, again, not to be that guy, but when you're constantly looking through the screens and you're thinking about the person across the country from you rather than the person across the street from you, it's hard to really engage in a good faith argument that we're all getting connected. We're not getting more connected through these devices.
For sure. And I've gotten a lot of heat for being the keep hustling guy because people think that what I mean by that is working 100 hours a week and making as much money as possible. And what I'm hoping that we're doing at Keep Hustling is inspiring people to internalize the message like yours, which is you have defined your hustle, still working hard, meeting people, as you said, who are working exponentially harder than you ever imagined, and that you're telling me that I can ever really internalize unless you're there. And yet people say that this hustle is more important or that hustle is more important, or being with your kids is not hustle or anything like that. I think that it's just, we have such an opportunity because of the access that we have to basic necessities and not really having to worry about that, as concerned as you and I probably are about that, that we could really focus on what's important and the values. And yet
And
the screens are taking the opposite way. So
yeah,
I feel like we should.
I think so. And I think, having an organizing principle is helpful for anything, for business and for life. I run my life like I do my business. I run it by the rule of three. I can have three plates spinning at any given time. Plate number one, most important, is my family. Are they happy? Are they healthy? Are they fed? Are they okay? Plate number two is what's the thing that's making me money so I can put food on the table. And then plate number three is what are the thing that feeds my soul, the thing that feeds my passion, the thing that feeds my goal to make this world a better place. Once I add a fourth plate, I usually drop all of them. And so you got to have organizing principles in life. You have to be organized in general and do the little things that we discussed earlier, like hit the foul shots and make the bed. So it's again, it's a privilege to be able to think this way. I mean, I remember having a dinner with a bunch of friends in New York City maybe 5-6 years ago. And they were talking about just how closed-minded, though, the people that I'm probably meeting in Kentucky are. I'm like, they're not closed-minded. It's just not in their environment. It's not easy for them to engage in the type of diverse conversations you can because you're in New York City and they've never been to New York City. They're just trying to put food on the table. You being able
They've
to
never been on an airplane.
yeah, airplane or not, most people have, but independent of that, it's like your ability to have an existential philosophical conversation, that alone is a privilege. Most people in this country don't have the brain space for that. They are literally just trying to pay the mortgage, get food on the table. Like we have to all slow down and remember that. And I think part of the problem again of just living our lives through screens is even the people who are going through that can kind of mirror out or ping out a vision of themselves that's not true. And so they can't even look internally in a way that is honest to the life that they're living and what their needs are. And so their children become secondary, and their children, it's like we're giving a legacy of tech addiction to our kids and grandkids that I fear is really, really unhealthy. Just quick tangent on that, and then I'll really shut up about the tech thing. But I read an article in the Atlantic a couple of years ago, and the title was "The Problem is not our kids are addicted. The problem is we are addicted." And it went through all of the metrics of what happens in like a small town that gets internet and social media. Like they don't have internet, they don't have a Starlink, they don't have it, and then they get it. Car crashes go up, emergency room visits go up. It's all the adults who are having the problems. Then we just pass that down to the kids. So we've got to get it under control and be a bit stronger. Of course, it's difficult. It's addictive. It's like walking into the casino. Then you're going to play the slot machine. That's why you just delete all the social media off the phone. Just do it. It's once you do it, it's liberating. It's liberating.
I love how the film guy is saying that. I love it. And obviously you're in a different, you're not in the tradition, but I love that. And it's like, you actually want more people to look at screens and and watch your films and do things like that. And yet,
I want them to watch it together if they can, like ours, like Silo. So just to go to Silo, 75-minute movie. The only way you were able to watch it when we released it in 2019 and 2020 was through a Silo community screening. It had to be a minimum of 50 people in the room, and then we helped you organize a Q&A afterwards with a mental health advisor and a farm safety expert and a farm economics expert. The goal was to cultivate community, not put people in their silos, because I did not get into this industry to have 5,000 people anonymously watch my movie on their couch. That does not interest me. I want to try and have some cultural impact and resonance. And the way to do that is through grassroots, people in the room together, connection. Of course, my next project is a TV show. It might end up on a streamer, but guess what? Our first episode is going to be launched at a large farm event, maybe multiple across the country, so people can talk about it, build buzz about it, connect with a podcast about it, feel like the thing that they're watching exists outside of just the screen. It exists with the people around them in their community. Again, is it a screen?
I love that.
Is it a screen-based thing? Is it possibly I'm just spinning my wheels and I'm just a drop in the bucket? 100%. But I'd like to put a vegetable in the diet of screen time because there's just a lot of garbage out there, a lot of fast food.
I love that. Great analogy. I love that.
That's my wife's.
I could talk to you for hours about this, and just catching up with you is amazing. Really, thank you again for being here. We have a closing tradition on our podcast, and I'm going to tell everyone again: follow Sam, read his stuff, follow the journey. I'm telling you,
there's nowhere to follow me.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there is. We can find you. We found your website. We see what you're doing. There's no irony. We're going to hunt you down. It's fine.
LinkedIn might be.
LinkedIn. You can see him on LinkedIn. You can find Sam on LinkedIn. You can find his website. But it is so inspiring to me because I know you for so long, and I'm like looking and I'm watching. People hopefully will watch this. If not, if they're listening to this, like Sam is literally sitting on a farm, and like. I also speaking to someone who's literally practicing what they're preaching and taking the step back and taking the more difficult route, not to sound like Miss Ginsburg in 5th grade, but I think was it then that we learned that we did 2 roads diverged in Yellowwood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that's made all the difference. I think that was one, and characters when no one's looking, I think was her other big line. But I'm incredibly inspired by you, and I hope our listeners are as well. We end every episode by asking our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational, inspirational quote and what it means to them and to their hustle. And with that, I'll just say, Sam, really, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for answering my messages. Thank you for the 37 years of friendship, 36 years of friendship.
Dude, well, first of all, tell your brother I say hi too.
100%.
And it's great to be connected. And listen, I'm very flattered by everything you just said. And, thank you. For me, it's very meaningful. It's nice. It's the middle of my workday, and I'm getting to, analyze, whatever impact I am or I'm not having. So thank you. The following quote is meaningful because my grandma Joan just passed away a month ago tomorrow. She was my best friend my whole life, and she would just send me quotes all the time in email. Like I have many grandma files, and one of them is just grandma quotes. And this one just stuck out to me when you asked this question. And I think it speaks to the hustle And it's very simple. It's just that the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. Um, so we'll leave it at that.
Samuel Goldberg, thank you again.
Thank you, bro.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.